Hi guys, are you wondering as well what is the best way in yoga to practice a standing forward fold? And what's the difference between having the legs long and having the knees bent? Is there a difference? Let me show you. My name is Dr. Mareike Engel, also called Malaya. I'm the founder of Devarita Yoga and I'm a yoga teacher, but I also teach biomechanics. And once you dive into the biomechanics, you will see that there's actually a huge difference between practicing a forward fold in a way where you have your legs fully lengthened out or you go into a proper bend. Why is that? Let's first have a look at, I'd say, a rather classical yoga alignment where you have your legs long. So if I go into a forward fold here, in this very classical way of, okay, we want to lengthen out the spine while we do this, and we are going to tilt the pelvis forwards. When I go into this forward fold here, at some point I will feel, oh yeah, I have a stretch now in the back of the thighs. So we're getting a stretch in the hamstrings. And Uttanasana, the forward fold, Uttana in Sanskrit means a strongly stretched. So it makes sense in a way to say like, okay, we are going into a position where we feel a strong stretch of the hamstrings. However, most people don't need to stretch the hamstrings. And I know a lot of you will say like, oh, this is not true. My hamstrings are so tight. I need to lengthen them. You might feel that your hamstrings are very tight. Why is that? So most people, simply from all the sitting that we're doing and from our lifestyle today, they have a pelvis that is not fully neutral, but that starts to go into an anterior pelvic tilt because our hip flexors are tight, we're constantly sitting. And what is happening when this is happening, the anterior pelvic tilt, then in the back here of the pelvis, where our hamstrings are sitting, it starts to lengthen out. So the hamstrings are already chronically lengthened. And this is why they might feel tight for you, because they are constantly trying to bring the pelvis backwards. But they can't because they are stuck in this lengthened out position. And I know some of you might say like, I don't have an anterior pelvic tilt. Maybe you don't have what looks like an anterior pelvic tilt. Maybe you have a very flat back, but this doesn't mean that you have still muscle engagement like a person in an anterior pelvic tilt. So what might have happened is that your body was thinking like, oh, I cannot go any further forward in my anterior pelvic tilt. So it was just rolling the whole pelvis under, which will then be a little bit of a change here in the angle from the femur, the thigh bone, towards the pelvis compared to someone who is in a more neutral position or someone who is in an anterior pelvic tilt. So basically you just take everything backwards. So it will look like you really need to lengthen your hamstrings because you're probably suffering from issues with really fully lengthening out your legs. So then it makes sense, no? We need to stretch the hamstrings. No, it doesn't make sense because you're already in this forward tilted position. No matter if you're here or if you're here and your femur is kind of more forward instead of the pelvis. The effect is always the same. It's the hamstrings in the back here that start from our sit bones here down below. They are already long. So if you're asking me, it doesn't make sense at all in yoga to go into a standing forward fold with the legs fully lengthened out. There are other positions, especially if you are doing any sort of more dynamic practice, you will always come to positions where you're stretching your legs out. And imagine like everyday life. How often are you kind of bending down? You're already going in a stretch there. You're constantly stuck in this position of lengthened out hamstrings. There's no need to lengthen the hamstrings anymore. This is why I would like to suggest a better position. So for your forward folds, I highly recommend to bend the knees. Like this, you're taking the length a little bit out of the hamstrings, so you will feel, okay, there's less of a stretch. But if you start from here and then go all the way down, you will still probably feel that there's some stretching from the hamstrings. It will depend as well a lot on your individual situations. So what I would highly recommend here is to not allow the pelvis to tilt too far forward. So you want to keep the navel drawn in. And when you do this, you start to bend the knees. Your toes are really pointing forward. This is important as well, that the knees and the toes are pointing forwards. You draw the navel in, and then you go down into your forward fold. And there's no need to go very far down. Then at some point you will feel that first of all you will get a stretch in the lower back, which is essential for all of us because we all have compression in the lower back. And you might feel as well, if you're really working on drawing the navel in and tilting the pelvis backwards, that right now the hamstrings are actually working here. So they are strengthening. We are strengthening them in this forward fold. And you can just hang here and be heavy, maybe grab the opposite elbows, whatever position feels good for you. If you go in a forward fold like this, not only are you lengthening out your lower back, which helps you to come out of this anterior pelvic tilt, but also you're strengthening your hamstrings at the same time, which is absolutely crucial for your pelvis to come back to a neutral position. No matter if you're here or if you're in a kind of very sway back position where the lower back is really, really flat, you don't really have an arch there. So this is why I highly recommend to all of you, no matter if you're a yoga teacher, yoga practitioner, come out of this classic yoga type of, oh, it looks so good, I need to really bend far down. It's not beneficial. Let me know what you think about this. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. I'd be really happy to hear. Let me know in the comments. And if you want to know more about biomechanics and yoga, make sure you have a look at my website. You can find the link down below. And give this video a like, and I hope to see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.